Perhaps you'd like to pull the switch.
For this kid, you bet I would.
No, you're out of order. A ranking of truth, justice, and the greatest legal dramas of all time, tracing the long and storied cinematic career of Law and Order, both inside the courtroom and beyond it, from The Passion of Joan of Arc to Erin Brokovich, written by Andrew Valianti. One of cinema's greatest powers is its ability to imbue a certain spectacle in the seemingly mundane.
And lastly, I protest against the fact that no stenographic records of this trial have been kept.
No genre represents this power better than that of the legal drama. Someone who may shudder at the thought of jury duty may be completely enthralled by the dramatized revelations of a tumultuous trial or impassioned by the fate of a seemingly doomed defendant. Very few classes of film allow for a more succinct and direct analysis of the human condition alongside the looming notions of truth and justice, playing a large factor in its sustained prevalence over the past 100 years.
These are the ones who drive the cabs, who nurse in the hospitals, who see their kids go to Vietnam.
This genre has fostered some of the most memorable movie moments and instantly iconic characters of all time during its existence, casting a sizable shadow over the industry and reeling in some of its most accomplished talent. The list below serves as a selection of some of the greatest unions between law and film, as well as an examination of the many unique styles and forms their connection can inspire. Number 10, Rashomon, Akira Kurosawa, 1950. The samurai, the wife, the bandit, or the woodcutter, who can be believed? That is the question at the heart of legendary Japanese director Akira Kurosawa's seminal contemplation on the unknowability and ultimate corruption of the truth, Rashomon. While not his first feature, the film made Kurosawa an internationally recognized auteur and served as the first Japanese feature to receive significant global acclaim. Rashomon opens on a woodcutter, a priest, and a commoner seeking refuge from a torrential downpour beneath a desolate city gate. The priest and woodcutter recount the extraordinary story of the trial they had both come from that dealt with the death of a noble samurai and abuse of his wife at the hands of the notorious bandit Tajomaru. The audience is then shown the conflicting recounts of the event at the trial from the perspective of the deranged criminal, hysterical widow, and the dead man's vengeful spirit by way of a medium. Each feature numerous contradictions only straightened out by the final story forced out of the woodcutter after he reveals to the two men that he hid the fact that he had secretly watched the whole affair from a nearby bush. Teaming with seven samurai collaborators Tashiro Mifune and Takashi Shimura as the bandit and woodcutter respectively, the film is undoubtedly Kurosawa's earliest masterpiece. While the treatment of the samurai's wife is terribly dated and the conclusion centers upon a laughably convenient infant ex machina, Rashomon remains a vital stepping stone in both the film industry of Japan and the cinematic relationship between fact and fiction. Number 9, Anatomy of a Murder, Otto Preminger, 1959.
You better take me, Mr. Lemon, because I just shot Barney Quill.
Dubbed the finest pure trial movie ever made by co-author of the book Real Justice, The Courtroom Go to the Movies, Michael Asimov, Otto Preminger's cumulative courtroom epic Anatomy of a Murder proves itself worthy of every second of its 161-minute runtime. Adapted from the 1958 novel of the same name, penned under a pseudonym by Michigan Supreme Court Justice John D. Volker, based on a case from his past, the film expertly explores the often neglected moral grey area of the law and its servants.
Immaterial, inconclusive.
Yeah, well, that's too much for me.
There is no domineering and unreasonable judge, nor is there a particularly evil set of prosecutorial attack dogs, and to top it all off, the defense freely admits he committed the murder he stands trial for. Nonetheless, James Stewart's indelible lawyer, Paul Bigler, must mount a case to free Ben Gazzara's Fred Mannion and navigate the web of small-town lies and long-held secrets that muddy the truth. Bigler's client stands accused of the murder of a local innkeeper after he raped and brutalized Mannion's wife, Laura, portrayed by Lee Remick.
I withdraw the question.
Facing a famed big city lawyer named Claude Dancer, the debut performance of the remarkably young George C. Scott Bigler is forced to consult every rule in the book to arrive tepidly at the notion of justice. Jazzily scored by famed composers Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn, Anatomy of a Murder moves along remarkably fast despite its daunting size, never losing sight of its unique tone and style. Number 8. Witness for the Prosecution, Billy Wilder, 1957.
Or are you not in fact a chronic and habitual liar?
In many ways, the British counterpart to Anatomy of a Murder, Billy Wilder's Witness for the Prosecution was cited by famed mystery novelist Agatha Christie as her favourite film adaptation of any of her work. The film centres on Charles Lawton's instantly memorable, brutally sarcastic barrister Sir Wilfrid Roberts, who had been strictly mandated to a diet of bland civil suits after a near-fatal heart attack.
In case you are not familiar with our prison regulations, no silk stockings.
He is, however, lured back into the world of the criminal courts by the sensational case of Tyrone Power's seemingly mild-mannered Leonard Vole, who stands accused of murdering a wealthy older widow. Despite ardent protests from his distraught nurse and his own failing health, Sir Wilfrid sets out to prove the man innocent by way of his cold and reluctant wife, famously portrayed by German starlet Marlene Dietrich.
I write my letters on small blue paper with my initials on it.
Like this?
Featuring Wilder's trademark witty dialogue and fully realised characters, the film has grown in cultural status over the years, thanks in large part to its shocking last-minute reveal, sure to make even M. Night Shyamalan jealous. The twist led to the film becoming one of the first to feature a spoiler warning attached to its credits, informing audiences the management of this theatre suggests that for the greater entertainment of your friends who have not yet seen the picture, you will not divulge to anyone the secret of the ending of Witness for the Prosecution. Number 7. To Kill a Mockingbird, Robert Mulligan, 1962.
You really understand a person until you consider things from his point of view.
Adapting one of the most influential novels of all time, rightfully seem an emphatically impossible endeavour. Films like 1984 and The Great Gatsby scarcely scratching the surface of their forebears. But Robert Mulligan's masterful To Kill a Mockingbird has long endured as the exception that proves the rule. Derived from Harper Lee's 1960 Pulitzer Prize-winning semi-autobiographical examination of her challenging childhood growing up in the segregated South, the film interpretation stays true to the author's earnest intent and expert execution.
Now don't go tugging at that dress, Scout.
A prototypical reflection on racial injustice and the abhorrent skin-deep prejudices that crippled America for centuries. The story centers upon a life-changing summer for 6-year-old Scout Finch. Scout, her brother Jem, and their friend Dill are preoccupied by the phantasmic tales of their reclusive next-door neighbor, Boo Radley. But when Scout and Jem's father, Atticus, decides to defend a black man named Tom Robinson faced with fabricated, racially motivated rape charges, the children must confront the terrible truth of racism that lie right outside their door.
There's a lot of ugly things in this world, son. I wish I could keep them all away from you.
Headlined by an Oscar-winning performance from Gregory Peck as Atticus, one of the screen's most memorable heroes, the film adaptation takes Lee's immortal words and injects a daring sense of urgency into them, putting every audience member into Scout's shoes and asking them whether they can sincerely claim America as the land of liberty and justice for all. Number 6. The Verdict, Sidney Lumet, 1982.
You listen to me. All I want on this trial was a fair shake.
While not the last time Sidney Lumet's name will appear on this list, the director's lesser-known 1982 legal drama, The Verdict, is among the best and most underrated of his filmography and the genre at large. Centering upon Paul Newman in one of the most compelling performances of his entire career, the film tells the story of a washed-up alcoholic attorney named Frank Gavin, disgraced by a fraudulent jury tampering accusation and forced into the dishonorable world of ambulance chasing. On the verge of complete collapse, Gavin is tossed a seemingly open and shut medical malpractice case the defense has already agreed to settle out of for a large sum.
I'm gonna win this. I'm going to the jury with a solid case. I got a famous doctor for an expert witness.
The case regards a woman who was administered a shady anesthetic during childbirth at a prominent Catholic hospital, proceeding to choke on her own vomit, which deprived her of oxygen and left her in a permanently comatose state. After examining the case, Gavin declines to settle, much to the shock and confusion of all parties involved. The dishonored lawyer catching on to a monumental cover-up by the hospital and finally finding his footing on the road to redemption after a 5-year freefall. Much like Lumet's other masterful legal drama, the verdict succeeds not by its own self-righteous interpretation of the law, but rather by its morally complicated characters trying their best to do what they think is right. Number 5, Erin Brokovich, Steven Soderbergh, 2000.
We had that water brought in special for you folks. Came from Well and Hinckley.
As far as star vehicles go in the realm of legal dramas, they don't get any better than Steven Soderbergh's, the remarkable Erin Brokovich, and the unmatched lead performance by Julia Roberts as the titular real-life figure at the film's center. Every frame Roberts occupies practically bursts off the screen, and those in which she does not appear, though remarkably few, her phenomenal presence is sorely missed. The plot of the film and the achievements of its extraordinary protagonist cannot be better summarized than they are on the film's poster. She brought a small town to its feet and a huge corporation to its knees.
Experience and
Trust.
judgment.
You want me to trust you? Do me a favor, Ed. Don't use big words you don't understand.
The film begins with Brokovich, an unemployed mother of 3, desperately searching for a job, getting caught in a nasty car accident and hiring a cheap lawyer named Aid Masry, portrayed by Albert Finney, to defend her in court. They lose the case, and later that week, Ed finds Erin working at his small firm. She talks him into hiring her and gives her a low-level real estate case to file centering on massive utility Pacific Gas and Electric Company attempting to buy Hinckley, California resident Donna Jensen's home. Brokovich is confused by the fact that Jensen's medical records attached to the real estate paperwork, but soon realizes PG&E had been paying for the family's cancer treatment.
I'm an idiot, okay? I may not have a law degree, but I've spent 18 months on this case, and I know more about these plaintiffs than you ever will.
Realizing she may have stumbled onto something, Brokovich discovers that the utility had been leaking a carcinogenic compound called hexavalent chromium into the groundwater of the town, poisoning hundreds of Hinckley households. An emotionally resonant and methodically told story of second chances and unthinkable victory. Erin Brokovich is an authentic revelation worthy of the dynamic heroine it is based upon. Number 4, Jfk Oliver Stone, 1991.
What your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Oliver Stone's epic political thriller, JFK, redefined the way many Americans look at one of the most important events in the nation's history, the assassination of the 35th President of the United States, John F. Kennedy. Very few films swing as big and hit as hard as Stone did, challenging the consensus over JFK's death and offering a comprehensive and surprisingly convincing ulterior thesis that has grown in popularity and notoriety as more declassified information has trickled out over the past 30 years.
But all of that ended on the 22nd of November 1963.
Despite its title, the film actually centers upon Kevin Costner's Jim Garrison, the district attorney of New Orleans, who becomes bewitched by the case and begins his own investigation. His passion is reignited by the release of the Warren Report, in which he sees numerous inaccuracies. Garrison begins an unrelenting odyssey into the underworld of the US government, threatening to unearth long-buried ghosts and untie the boundless web of conspiracies waiting just beyond his reach.
We're talking about our government here.
No, we're talking about a crime, Bill, pure and simple.
His pursuit leads him to the mysterious benefactor and potential prime suspect Clay Shaw, face to face with a high-level, all-telling Washington, D.C. official known as X, and into a tempestuous trial in which he lays bare all that he has and questions the very soul of America. JFK is a startlingly poignant and exceedingly prescient journey, sure to leave audience members with 1,000 more questions than answers. For, as Joe Pesci's David Ferry memorably informs Garrison,
"It's a mystery wrapped in a riddle inside an enigma!"
and the shooters don't even know. Number 3, The Passion of Joan of Arc, Carl Theodor Dreyer, 1928. In the 97 years since its release, Carl Theodor Dreyer's immensely influential silent French masterpiece, The Passion of Joan of Arc, is one of cinema's foremost landmarks. Based on the recovered transcripts of the actual recorded trial of the fated yet canonized teenage warrior Joan of Arc, the film follows the legendary French martyr as she leads the country to several major victories in the 100 Years' War and is captured by the English. Joan was put on trial for claiming to have spoken to God, a postulation deemed blasphemous by her captors due to her oppositional allegiance and womanhood. she is relentlessly tortured and forced into altering her story by the villainous English clergy, but ultimately remains steadfast in her assertion. She is declared guilty and subsequently burnt at the stake, a riot breaking out and the words "You have burned a saint" flashing across the screen. Stage actress Renee Jean Falconetti portrayed Joan with breathtaking candor and tragic faith, cementing herself as one of film's most impactful figures despite only ever earning one single credit to her name. Altogether, The Passion of Joan of Arc lives on as one of the foremost achievements in film and a pitch-perfect depiction of ignorance and malice being disguised as law and order. Number 2, Paths of Glory, Stanley Kubrick, 1957.
Well, good luck to you, soldier. Carry on.
There is a reason that Stanley Kubrick's name is synonymous with pure cinematic perfectionism. Every single genre the director touched was transformed and revolutionized by his work. 2001, A Space Odyssey from 1968 for science fiction, The Shining 1980 for horror, Barry Lyndon 1975 for period pieces, and Path of Glory 1957 for the legal drama.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave.
Set on the no man's land front of World War I, the film centers on the trial of 3 unlucky soldiers after an unsuccessful attack on a fortified German encampment called the Anthill. Kirk Douglas starred as Colonel Dax, a former prosecutor and the leader of the battalion of men charged with storming the stronghold. After the attack breaks and the men retreat, the ambitious and sadistic General Moreau launches a court-martial and demands 100 of their own soldiers to be killed as an example. He is talked down into one from each company to be given a sham trial and then executed. One of the fated men is selected because his commanding officer didn't like him in school, another because he is socially undesirable, and the final is chosen randomly by lot.
Firm, troops crave discipline.
I see.
And one way to maintain discipline is to shoot a man now and then.
Faced with unthinkable injustice, Dax demands that he serve as the defense in court, finding the trial to be a complete farce conducted only for show. Kubrick expertly blends the massive dehumanizing cloud of war with the harrowingly personal story of one man's fight to save his soldiers' lives, creating what would be the greatest legal drama of all time, if not for the final film on this list. Number 1, 12 Angry Men, Sidney Lumet, 1957.
He didn't change his vote. I did.
It will shock no one to find Sidney Lumet's 12 Angry Men occupying the final spot on this list. No filmic analysis of the American tenets of truth and justice has ever pierced the global zeitgeist more intensely than Lumet's flawless debut feature. As the title suggests, the film centers upon 12 particularly angry men trapped together in a single room and forced to mull over the fate of an 18-year-old boy accused of murdering his father. The film begins as the boy's trial concludes and the jury is sent off to deliberate and reach a unanimous final verdict of guilty or not guilty, the former leading to the defendant receiving the death sentence.
Not guilty. Boy, how do you like that?
The jury believed themselves to be in complete agreement, taking a preliminary vote only to find themselves 11-1 in favor of guilt. The holdout is revealed to be Henry Fonda's Juror 8, who argues for innocence on the basis of reasonable doubt. The rest of the men are dismissive, some deeply prejudiced against the defendant based on the color of his skin, others disinterested by the matter entirely, and one who just wants to get through with the ordeal so he can attend a baseball game.
I mean, what's happening in here? I'm speaking my piece and you...
Little by little, Juror 8 wins his contemporaries to his side, challenging the alarming cavalier with which some of the jury play with the matter of life and death. 12 Angry Men is frequently regarded by many as one of the greatest films ever made, regardless of era or genre. Consequently, this must make it the greatest of both its era and genre, as such the best legal dramas of all time. Your Honor, I rest my case.